Hello, my name is Ogskive, and I'm the sort of person to get enraptured in passion projects. Since my early college days, many of my passion projects take the form of board games I make. They're an outlet for my creativity, with the added side effect of giving me and my pals something to do. If you don't know already, my most recent passion project and subject of this YouTube channel is my game Deck Dads, the ultimate deck builder. Deck Dads is a game of choices, strategy, uneasy alliances, and smack talk. I have a pipe dream that one day, Deck Dads and other silly games I dream up will be the real deal games in a box, but until that day happens, I hope you'll stick around for the ride. And if you want, check out Deck Dads on Steam Tabletop Simulator. Over 100 people are already getting in on the fun. But today, I'll be doing a deep dive on one of the 7 playable dads available in Deck Dads, that being Mr. Outside. This bastion of a dad is the latest recipient of a facelift in my endeavors to revamp the game, so let's dig into the nitty-gritty in the form of a tier list. Here we are, the 4th dad in the series of tier lists that I've been doing. Mr. Outside, known for being the most defensive of the dads. He's very much about defending and becoming untouchable, so I'll be ranking his cards based on how well he can do that job. Now, like every dad, in Deck Dads, you start with like a starting deck, a predetermined starting deck, and over the course of the game, you'll add cards to your starting deck and build your own deck, thus deck building. So, we'll start by ranking the starting cards, which tend to be a little more basic and less exciting, but still very important. I'll be starting not in order of the tier list here, but with the basic attack and the basic block. Every dad has 3 copies of these in their starting deck, and they're just flavorfully different for each dad. We have the Perch here for the basic attack and the Sunfish for the basic block. Well, normally I've been putting the basic attack in D for disappointing, because it's pretty much the worst card any dad can have. And I've been putting the basic block in conditionally good for every dad. But Mr. Outside actually has more of a use for his blocks than other dads, because he can actually use his blocks preemptively for the next turn. So that's kind of his entire mechanic. So actually, I want to bump the block up just a little bit. It's nothing crazy still. He has much better cards, but it's more useful in his capable hands. Next up, we have First Aid. Just in case you've never seen a Deck Dads card before, and statistically that is pretty likely, let me break down a card for you. That number in the middle, kind of in the middle right of the card there, that's the energy cost. So on your turn, you have 3 energy you can spend to move or make money or play cards. So card that costs 1, that's taking 1/3 of your energy a turn, just to kind of orient you as we navigate these cards. First Aid is an important card in the toolkit of Mr. Outside. That being that it lets him get extra block while playing and drawing cards. So it's kind of like a combo card. The block isn't great at 1 per play, but it's not bad. It's a starting card. Gets you going. Now here we go. Hunter's Vest. This card is getting into the meat and potatoes of what makes Mr. Outside a unique dad, is the overblock mechanic. This card is a 0 cost, so it's free. Pretty great. You're probably playing this every turn you draw it. There's really no downside. And overblocking is basically like block. So typically block you play for your turn. It happens on your turn. Overblock is block for your next turn. It blocks damage on the following turn, but you can't use it to block damage on the current turn. So, it's good, but it's not good in a pinch, Hunter's Vest. The fact that you can play it every turn, no downside, makes it pretty good. I'm going to keep it in the conditionally good tier for C tier, because that kind of feels like where it belongs, because it's nothing game-breaking. Now, Hunter's Vest pairs very nicely with Mola Mola. This is the biggest flashiest card in the Mr. Outside starting deck. His biggest fish of all, based on the Ocean Sunfish Mola Mola. Damage equal to your overblock. So this basically lets Mr. Outside turn his overblock into damage. Now, I neglected to mention that anytime Mr. Outside plays a blocking card, remember, blocking is normally for your current turn only, he can choose to turn that block into overblock for the next turn. So those basic blocks, block 3 Sunfish, can actually be used to turn into damage for the Mola Mola. Now, the Mola Mola's not doing any turn 1 victory kind of crazy stuff, but it is big and flashy and fun to pull off, so for a starting card, yeah, that's pretty good. That's B tier. Now, the last card in Mr. Outside starting deck is the Whittling Knife. This is kind of like a tempo card. Lets you move around for free. The 0 cost there. Move up to 1. The damage 2 to each player within 1 tile of you. Now, this isn't crazy damage or anything, but you're playing this every turn. You draw it. You draw 3 cards every turn, so you're probably playing this card. You're always pretty happy to have it. It doesn't do much in the big scheme of things, but that little bit of damage adds up, and Mr. Outside's playstyle is such that he likes to have the game go slow, do these little jabs here and there, not doing any big, crazy, swingy combat. So, Whittling Knife is perfect for his kit. And yeah, C tier card. Now, all of the cards from here on out are cards that are not in the starting deck. These are cards that you'll be building your deck with. You'll be buying these cards with the money you accrue. And let's start off with the Bass. Now, the Bass is kind of like a super basic block card. Damage 5, so not quite twice. I've misspoke here. There's another card that's like a basic block upgrade. This is kind of like a basic attack upgrade. Damage 5, range 2. Not quite double the damage, but double the range of your basic perch attack. And it gives the extra benefit of overblock. So there's a little bit of 2 things going on at once here. Now, the double the cost is quite a bit of a downside because you do only have 3 energy every turn, so something that costs 2 energy is more than half of your energy. You're not going to be doing much else, and if you have any damage coming at you, this is going to inhibit your ability to block. So this is another C tier card. Now, a very interesting card in the Alewife. Damage 3, range 1. If you have 3 or more overblock, damage 6, range 4 instead. So, in case you want to eschew the slow-paced lifestyle, you can take the Alewife and do some pretty decent damage. Now, in deck dads, you only have 10 health. If you're probably overblocking on your turn. Getting to 3 overblock is trivial. So, getting this up to 6 damage isn't much of a commitment, and that range is pretty solid. This is one of the few cards that Mr. Outside has in his kit that lets him do this kind of bigger damage. So if you want to go down that route, Alewife, you'll definitely want to be adding this to your deck. Otherwise, it's just a basic attack if you do not have the overblock. So, it can't be too good. It's a B tier card. Next up, Bug Spray. Overblock 2x. Now, that X means that you can choose to spend however much energy you want, 0, 1, 2, or 3, or if you're doing some crazy build with colorless cards, maybe there's some ways to get even more energy. So, overblock 2x, you can spend 3 energy to overblock 6, which is a little bit of a waste, because Mr. Outside has a maximum of 5 overblock at a time, and if you ever want, if you just draw this card and don't really feel like paying into it for the overblock, you can spend 0 and get the 1 block as a participation trophy. So Bug Spray, it's another one of these kind of mediocre, slow-paced cards. So this is a conditionally good card. Now, if you're getting the sense that Mr. Outside has a bunch of these kind of middling cards. Don't worry, we're going to get into some of the really good ones. Mr. Outside used to be the most busted dad in the game, so he's had some toning down over these past couple of months. And, well, that might not be super obvious when we take a look at the Catfish. Now, the Catfish is one of the best cards available to Mr. Outside. And it's not a card that even blocks or does damage. It's just kind of a fun card. You'll be noticing a trend with all these fish cards, and there's a reason for that. If you poke your eyes a little bit ahead in the tier list, you might see a relevant card. But for now, the Catfish. Discard another card in your hand and add the top brown card to your deck. Now, Mr. Outside's the brown dad, so he'll be adding these cards you'll be seeing in this tier list with the Catfish. So this card is actually great. This card lets you lets you cull your more disappointing cards like the Perch or the Hunter's Vest and replace it with some of the more interesting cards available to you from among these cards that you can be buying that aren't in the starter deck. So the Catfish kind of lets you replace all those old sloppy cards with something more fun. It's pretty good. The price is right at only 1 energy to already just let you get going. The only downside is that you have to be lucky enough to have drawn the card you want to get rid of and the Catfish at the same time, which isn't always doesn't always happen at the most opportune moments. But this is a very good card. You have to take my word for it. Now, Crappy. Overblock 2 each time another player targets you with damage on their next turn. So this is a card you play, and it does nothing immediately, but it sits there on the board for a round until it comes back to you. And during that time, every time a player attacks you, you're charging up your overblock. So this card is just like stopping. It's going to stop a bunch of damage up to a maximum of 5 because you have a cap of 5 overblocked. So for 1 energy, stopping up to 5 damage. This card is also really good for all of the cards like Whittling Knife that the other dads have that just kind of jab at you with little paper cuts. Crappy's just going to put the kibosh on that. Obviously, if your opponents don't attack you, you played Crappy for no reason. And you might find that happening a lot as Mr. Outside because, well, if you're playing with people who know how to play, they see that Mr. Outside is a very defensive dad. They might not want to take you on right away, so you might spend a lot of turns bluffing, basically, putting up a bunch of block, and then everybody sees you have a bunch of block, and then they just don't attack you. But that's just if you're a Mr. Outside enthusiast, that's what you're here for. So Crappy isn't going to upset you if nobody attacks into it. So Crappy's all right. It's definitely better than some of these C tier cards, but there's room at the top still. Next, Estrus Spray. Let's read this one. Each other player must choose to lose 1 energy at the start of the next turn. If they don't, they can't target you with damage that turn. So this is a very, very powerful card. Because you have a measly 3 energy to play with every turn. Estrus Spray will cost you 1 energy, but if we do the math and you're playing with 2 or 3 other opponents, your 1 energy is going to pay for itself because they're not going to be able to attack you. And if you KO another dad and you're in a 1v1 situation, this is basically saying, hey, I'm just going to slow down the pace of the game. I'm spending an energy, but I'm a slow defensive dad anyway. If you want to come after me, you're also going to have to play at my playing field. So it just lets you control how things are happening, not letting anything get overwhelmed, be tactical about it. Estrus Spray just lets you exert that influence over everybody else, and it's just a solid S tier card. Now, Fishing Rod. 0 cost, so free card. Search your deck for a card with a picture of a fish, then add it to your hand. So, this is kind of like a free draw, but you get to choose what it is that you get so long as there is a picture of a fish. So, rather conditional. Of course, you'll most likely be having at least the Mola Mola in your deck, because that's your starting card. This lets you combo with the catfish, and here's a little secret, pretty much every other dad has a card with a picture of a fish on it just for this card. So in case you're able, there's this very limited number of ways in the game for you to get your hands on those other dad's cards, but if you're ever able to do so, you can fishing rod some weird pulls out of your deck. And also the colorless cards have, there's at least one card with a picture of a fish in the colorless cards. So fishing rod combined with some of the these bonus card fish that you can be adding to your deck can just let you basically whatever you need for the turn. It'll let you grab it. Now, I'm not gonna pull the wool over your eyes and say this is a fantastic card or anything, but it is one of the most fun cards available to Mr. Outside, so seriously fun. That's an S tier card. Next, we have Foxhole. So, 1-cost card. You can only play this card as your first card this turn. So if you draw this with something like First Aid, it's a dead card. You can't play it. You have to draw it basically in your starting hand. You can't move after playing this, and cards that block double this turn. So, you're hoping to draw this on a turn where you just have a mountain of damage falling on you. You can throw down Foxhole, and then you can just wall anything. This card does have, obviously, a lot of downsides. Like, obviously, it needs to be the first card, and it stops you from moving afterwards, so really, really slowing down the pace of the game. I have yet to see a crazy Foxhole play in the dozens and dozens of games of playtesting I've done, so, you know what? If you have any ideas for how I can buff Foxhole, I think it would be warranted. I've been hesitant to buff Mr. Outside cards because I know before I started the YouTube channel, when I've been working on deck dads, if you ask any of my friends, they'll say that Mr. Outside was a total menace to society and he had to be nerfed. So buffs have been few and far between, but I think Foxhole is one of these few D for disappointing cards that deserves it. Okay, moving on. We have Gauze. So every single dad has a way of healing. This is Mr. Outside's. Heal equal to your overblock, then vanish this. Vanishing just meaning you're getting rid of the card for the rest of the round. You won't be able to play with it again. So once per round, heal. Most of the time, this is going to be a heal for 5, just because Mr. Outside maxing out an overblock is a pretty common event. You probably want to be waiting for an opportune moment when you already have 5 overblock to play this. You don't want to be wasting it. And because you're at that slow pace, like I've been saying, you can make that happen. So Gauze is an incredible card. You only have 10 health, and this is basically a heal for half. Now, we have a card that only crazy people like me consider ever taking. That being the Hunting Knife. Now, let's just bask in this card for a second. 1 damage, damage 6. Okay, so if we stop there, this card is twice as good as a basic attack. And if you insist that we keep reading, the rest of it says, if the target blocks at least 1 on their next turn, this damages 0 instead. Now, you may be thinking that blocks aren't as common on other dads, because we are talking about the block dad today, but I'll let you in on a little secret. Blocks are common enough that you'll be blocking pretty much every turn. So you're basically gambling big time playing Hunting Knife, just hoping that they don't draw very common cards, which is obviously not a great thing. But if you consider that you'll be playing for quite a while, stalling a little bit with Mr. Outside, you little stalling devil you'll probably get in a hit with Hunting Knife and take out a big chunk of damage, because now if they're not blocking, they're taking 6 damage, that's over half their life. So, once again, no wool over your eyes. Hunting Knife isn't a very good card, but it is a very fun card. That's a B tier card, in my eyes. Okay. Forage. This is the weirdest card, at least in Mr. Outside's deck, and maybe in top 3 weird card in the entire game. Look at the top card of another player's deck. You may pay its cost and play it. If you don't, draw one instead. So this is never a dead card. It just lets you have a little look-see at what other people have. And if you so choose, you can play that card. If for whatever reason, there's a bunch of cards that, like, other dads have keywords that you can't interact with. And those are quite common. If there's just cards that you can't or don't want to play, hey, no problem. Just get another card instead. Now, that's great. It's a great, effective, fantastic card. The problem with Forge is not a gameplay or a balance one. It's that it just takes freaking 100 years for you to take your turn if you're playing Forge. Because now you're already slow, but now you're like, oh, let me look at the Grill Master's deck. Let me walk through the Tech Whiz department. Oh, does the Yard Barn have anything I fancy today? No. I'm just gonna draw one instead. So, don't get me wrong, Forge, mechanically good. Whenever I see somebody play it, I want to pull their eyeballs out. So, it loses fun points. Conditionally good. Now, Salmon, Big Fish, block 12, 3 energy. What more could you want? S tier. Okay, no retreat. Oh, just kidding. It's called retreat. My brain is broken. Move up to 3, directly away from another player, within 1 tile of you, then over block 3. Now, to play this card, you have to be next to another player. Which, in deck dans is common. The board isn't that big, 7x5 tiles. So chances are you're next to somebody. Great. You have to be wanting to run away from them. Fantastic. You have to have 2 energy. Great. And the value comes out of getting overblock. So if you already have a substantial amount of overblock, it doesn't do much for you. So, all that being said, retreat is taking most of the energy on your turn to run away under specific circumstances. I can't put this any higher than C tier. C tier might be generous for this card. Let's just leave it at that. Now, Stench. Yuck. This is another one of the top weird cards in the game. Stench, cost 1. Vanish this. Okay, set it aside. It's no longer in your deck. While this is vanished, okay, it gives you like a permanent bonus. You deal 1 damage to other players within 1 tile of you when you end your turn. Doesn't work very well with retreat, but what it does work with is my dopamine receptors, because now you get to do damage for free every turn. It's not much damage, hardly any damage at all, but free damage is a rare gem of a thing in deck dads, and oh boy, is it a good time. Is it a good time? You get to be stinky. You get to be a stinky outdoors, man. If you get more than 1 of these, like, oh baby, we eating good. Okay. This is just kind of a basic, like obvious kind of card. Trophy, damage 3, then gain $4 and vanish this. It's a one-time injection of money. This is a card that you have to pay for. You pay $3 to get it. Now, if you let's slow down, do the math here. 4 is bigger than 3, and you also get to do some damage out of it. So sometimes when you see this card, you're like, why not? Why wouldn't I buy this? Now, the effect is nothing game-breaking, but it is like strictly good. So, like, I take this card all the time, but let's be real, it's not doing anything crazy. Okay, Trank Rifle. Damage 6 to another player within 8 tiles. This is the card you're hunting for. When you're playing Mr. Outside, this is what you want. 8 tiles is a ridiculous range. 6 damage for 3 energy is not blowing anything out of the water. But you have these turns where nobody wants to attack you and you have no damage coming at you because you put up your overblock. And then you just hit them with an actual gun. You just shoot another player with a gun, and that's how you win the game. From all the way across the board. So, Trank Rifle, this is an easy S tier. Next up we have Lamprey. This is in the vein of cards that let you move around in weird ways, like a slippery little lamprey you are. 0 cost, move up to 2, so alright. That's a big discount if you've been keeping track. You can move 1 tile for 1 energy normally. 0 energy for 2 tiles. That's infinitely better. We're dividing by 0 and breaking reality with Lamprey. And reality is truly broken because it lets you move through other players. So sometimes in deck dads you can get in a situation where you are completely blocked in, especially if you have some really mean friends who conspire to trap you in a corner, which is usually a death sentence. Not with Lamprey. Lamprey lets you slip out of those wacky little scenarios. Lamprey is great. It's not winning you the game, obviously, because it doesn't do any damage, but it does let you be a slippery little freak. Okay, Tree Stand. The range of your cards increases by 4 this turn. So other than Trank Rifle and Alewife, you are a little bit range challenged as Mr. Outside. None of you you don't have a ton of cards that work at range. So Tree Stand is a band-aid on that. The problem with Tree Stand is that it costs energy, so it is eating into your very valuable, precious energy, which stops it from being great, but it is the definition of conditionally good. Next up, Hike. Move up to 3 in a straight line, then move up to 3 in a straight line. So you can be moving up to 6 with this card for 2 energy. Is not so bad. There is the weird limitation of controlling how you move in straight lines. You can only move like a drunken chess knight. But I mean, that's it. I've run out of things to say about Hike, the world famous deck dads card. Lastly, Trout. Block 2 over block 2. Trout's trying his best, but his best is not above the rest. Trout, look at him. Look into his eyes. He is not destined for greatness. He is just a mediocre little freak. Disappointing. Alright, so there we have it. The best and the worst cards that Mr. Outside has to offer. If you have any thoughts about my tier list, I am desperate to hear your thoughts. I am not attention starved or anything. I just enjoy talking about my passion projects, like I said at the start of the video. So, I do hope you'll check out Deck Dads if you have Tabletop Simulator. It is free, and, well, I rely on people like you to report back. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. If you want to be a part of this process, I am eager to have you. If you want to stick along on this journey, it's going to be a long one of improvement, and just making the best, most fun game I can. That is the goal after all. So, do join my Discord, leave a comment, join the conversation. But most importantly, thank you for watching, and thank you for playing Deck Dads and just having a good time. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So, alrighty, take care. Have a good one. Bye now.